I am with someone who I watched constantly, and I respect her opinion. I'm a huge fan of films, and everything you have said about every film ever made, I have heard.
Thank
and I
you.
have consumed. So Anupama Chopra,
Thank you.
for those of you living under a rock, she is an amazing film, I would say, commentator, critic. Anything else you would describe yourself?
Lover.
Yeah, lover for sure. Because I was asking her, I was like, can you watch a film objectively now just to enjoy yourself?
And I still can.
That's big.
Yeah.
Because when you do it as work day in, day out, and you can still do it, that means film lover is definitely a title for you. And now you're with the Hollywood Reporter.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Are you enjoying bringing something so well established into India?
It's really a joy. And I really felt like that was the right next step, because I feel like, film world is becoming smaller. Everybody is now working with each other. There's
Right.
no longer these church and state divisions.
That's true.
It's just a wonderful time to try and take Indian artists and Indian talent global, take those stories, to the West, take Western stories here. So it's all very exciting.
Amazing. Okay, so today, what I wanted to discuss was my two favorite things in the world, film and fashion. Film has a huge impact on fashion. Like, for example, if Mumtaz's sari, the orange sari, was a hit, at all the parties, you'll see these women in that era in those saris, or the bouffant, or the bangs, like Sadhana's bangs.
Yeah.
The same way, I think even pop culture and fashion then impacts films, right? So it's vice versa. And these two, films and fashion, really go hand in hand. In India, also outside of India, everywhere, right?
But I would say nowhere as much as it does in India.
Really?
Because
Why do you say that?
in the West, fashion is a whole, it's not a separate, but it's a sort of a very defined and a very, very influential ecosystem in itself.
A very established industry.
Very established, extremely established, with its own stars and its own rituals and all the rest of it, right? In India, the fashion sort of notes, if you will, came from film, right? And for me, these two industries have been joined at the hip in a way that it's not true of any other country in the world. In fact, once, I remember long ago, like 10, 15 years ago, I had asked Pratap.
Rajesh Pratap Singh. He's a
Rajesh Pratap Singh, who's just
fabulous designer.
This was the question I put to him, that what do you think has been the impact of film on fashion? And he did not mince his words. He said, it stunted us. Because it's so powerful.
When I say an artist who has really impacted films, what is the first name that just comes to your mind?
Yash Chopra.
Yash Chopra?
Of course, there was, especially the 50s, which is the golden age of Indian cinema, Hindi cinema. And you had, a Mughal-e-Azam in 1960, which is just the most
Visually stunning.
opulent, stunning film ever. But then with Yash Chopra, what happened is, and what I've been told and what I've read a lot is that Waqt, which was, oh God, what was
1965.
65.
You told me to watch it, so I watched it. Yeah.
Was the one that kind of brought in fashion and sort of a certain affluent lifestyle and a look into the movies, because Sadhna and Sharmila ji were like in those the bouffants and the tight churidars,
Body fitted kameezes.
the kameez.
Yeah, and then the churidars.
Yes,
Very
And-
60s, yeah.
But also the living rooms. These
Sprawling.
vast, sprawling spaces. So that was like then something that you sort of noticed and aspired to. And then, of course, he made Diwar. He made a lot of sort of grittier cinema, Kala Patthar, all of this. But then, of course, then in 1989, there's Chandni.
Yeah, and I was around for that. I mean,
Yeah.
I was little, but I was like, whoa.
Right. Sridevi in the whites.
In the white.
Which, of course, also Raj Kapoor had done many decades ago with Nargis in the white.
Right.
She was the OG lady in the white. But I
Right.
feel like in terms of pop culture, what really kind of hit
Infiltrated through to people. Yeah.
was Chandni. And then through the 90s, it was, it was Dil To Pagal Hai.
Athleisure, I think, became a thing with Dil To Pagal Hai. Yeah.
I mean, there was, Shah Rukh was living in some loft, Pepsi vending machine in that studio apartment, and
the fireman's pole.
the fireman's pole, and there was, Madhuri and Karishma and that dance off. I mean,
And do you think that he reached his kind of pinnacle with Manish as a combination? Or maybe he influenced Manish to become Manish? Or what was it? I don't know.
I don't know. No, you know.
Or they were a good team,
They were a great team, and Manish was sort of at the right place at the right time. Somebody with an aesthetic which is far more elegant than, you know, what we had seen in the movies. It was a little louder all through the 80s, even early 90s. But then with Rangila, I mean, Rangila, I have such a clear memory of watching. This was what, 1994. So the distributor, Sham Shroff, had this sort of industry screening at Eros Theatre. And I remember this so clearly, just sitting there and thinking, the world has changed. Like something has shifted. With that film, when Urmila came on screen in that skirt,
the little floral dress,
the floral dress and boots, and Ashaji's voice and those songs, and Manish just changed the entire game. Obviously, it wasn't relatable. Nobody in Millie's position dressed like that. I mean, finally, she was a junior dancer.
Actor,
she was a struggling actor, but she like dressed impeccably.
Like a star,
Exactly. But it was like, for the first time, you felt like, oh my God, young people could look like this. Manish was the sort of switch.
Like a switch.
Yeah.
I think he was also the reason costume design became a formal category, which would get awarded, which I think maybe they started spending more money on costumes after him, because they realized that the look of a film can change everything.
Everything. I mean, what he did with Karishma in Raja Hindustani.
Yes.
So he became the makeover man.
He did become the makeover man. You're so right. Yeah. And then even Raveena Tandon in Shahar Ki Ladki.
Yeah. All these women who, they also had a certain attitude, you know, which was very refreshing. It was kind of, you know, slightly cheeky, you know, not subservient. We weren't going for that Sati Savitri vibe
look anymore.
Yeah. And it was amazing. And then, of course, there was Aishwarya in Hum Dil De Chuke Sanam.
That was Neeta Lola.
Just stunning.
But would you credit that to more the costume designer or the Sanjay Leela Bhansali aesthetic?
That man is a genius and is a sort of genre unto himself.
Exactly.
Right? But I don't think you can take away from the work anybody does with what they do. With him, of course, he's directing every inch of it.
Right.
Aishwarya's white sari in Devdas in that last
climax
shot when she's running towards Devdas. I mean, he's directed it down to the last inch, you know, but he brought out the best in all the designers he's worked with. What Anuradha Vakil did in Savarya,
stunning.
Just stunning. So
beautiful. And even Rimple and Harpreet, they did 2 projects with them. Hiramandi, and before that they'd done Padmavat, I think.
Correct.
And I think one started to really notice them. That, okay, they have like a very nice Indian traditional beautiful aesthetic, because maybe he pushes them to do
he does. He's not easy.
From all the Sanjay Leela Bhansali world, what are like 1 or 2 fashion moments where you gasped when you saw it?
There is, of course, Deepika in the Sheesh Mahal song in Padmavat.
Yeah, beautiful. That's Anju Modi.
That's Anju Modi.
It's that beautiful Anarkali kind of thing.
In that Anarkali, and like, it's all the same sort of palette.
Tone,
the same tone, and she was just exquisite. And also in Ram Leela, you know, there was that Lahu Mu Lagya song, where the holy song.
There was a beautiful ghagra choli, very sexy, very Gujarati.
Very Gujarati, which of course I would never ever be able to carry. But that moment that he created of sexiness between these two, Deepika and Ranveer, and this bit of gulal, you know, was just stunning to me. Stunning. But I'll tell you what I really lust for is the blue coat that Aishwarya wore in Ae Dil Hai Mushkil.
She had some great outfits, because they're very wearable. Like, we cannot roam around a ghagra choli, but those outfits we can wear, the Ae Dil Hai Mushkil outfits.
I even remember texting Karan saying, where's this from? And it was Temperley, I want to say. I don't know my brands. So yes, I'm completely checking clothes out. I don't know, does that make me shallow?
Not at all.
No,
because all actors say that once we wear the costume, we feel the character. So costumes are super important, and as a critic, that's something you should definitely be looking at. You know, also costumes can be distracting.
Of course,
sometimes I'm like, can you just take that off? Like, it's bothering me. You know what I mean?
Because in too many films, costumes actually try and substitute for character.
And they can't do that. They can add to it.
They can only embellish, add, co-create. You can't be the character. Like, if we look glamorous enough, maybe nobody will notice there's no story.
This is so true.
And that never happens.
So, like, I did the costumes for Aisha, like obviously back when I was super young. So after that, I didn't do any other films as costume designer as such, but I would get a lot of offers.
Yeah.
So like my brief would be, हाँ glam लगना है, sexy लगना है. And I'm like, but वो कहाँ रहती है, वो कितने साल की है, what's the deal for this character?
Correct.
बस glam, sexy, पैसे लो जा shopping करो. And I'm like,
Correct.
no, like this,
Yeah.
you know,
Yes.
like it's crazy.
Absolutely. That's the problem.
I think Manish did the whole modern movement very well. He made everything a little modern, but a little westernized.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
I had a chat with Dia Mirza, who I love, of course. She was just saying that, somehow in the 90s, what happened was we equated being like modern to being like Western.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I think that really came through our films.
Yeah.
And then the rest of us who were growing up in the 90s, we felt that because the films we were watching, these modern girls were wearing these cute skirts and dresses, and we also wanted to copy them.
But the key was that you could have that exterior, but the interior had to be Hindustan.
Oh, acha.
I mean, you remember Rani Mukherjee in Kuch Kuch Hota Hai? She was Tina, back from wherever, London
Oxford.
or somewhere, Oxford.
Yeah.
Oxford educated Tina in the little
Tiny
skirt.
skirt, tiny top.
But when she had to sing a bhajan, she got into it. It was always this messaging of you can be anything from the exterior. You're a global citizen.
Yeah.
You're Raj in London who can do whatever he wants. But in DDLJ, he does not even quote-unquote take advantage when Simran is drunk because he knows what an Indian woman's honor is. At the time, I was utterly seduced.
Yes, like
These
all of us.
movies were just so dazzling. I mean, of course, culminating in the ultimate K3G.
Right. That repeat value for that movie, if it's on, I can watch it anytime.
Me too.
And I can pick it up at any point.
Me too.
Yeah.
Like whatever happens if K3G is playing the songs. And again, look at the work Manish did in that.
Brilliant in K3.
Just the chiffons, which are sort of an echo back to Yashji, but also that red outfit of Keh Dona, also the...
Iconic.
All of it.
The sharara with the crop top
Exactly.
for Bole Churiyan.
Bole Churiyan,
I think Manish has set trends. His understanding of what looks on camera is insane.
It's insane.
And sense of color.
Yeah.
I was actually going to say that I think what has really impacted this Indian screen the most is the use of color.
Yeah.
Like Aishwarya's that bold blue almost of this wall in Nimuda.
Yeah.
Like we are the only culture that uses so much color in our costumes.
And how stunning was she?
And maybe that's why our screens are so beautiful over the years, right?
That's what makes Indian cinema so unique, that it is flamboyant.
That's true.
You
like
know?
I remember, again, I was little, but I remember because I'm from Rampur, okay? So I was in Woodstock in boarding school, but I used to go to Rampur for holidays. When Hum Aapke Hain Kaun came out, I would see Madhuri's purple sari.
Yes.
Like hanging on the streets.
Absolutely.
Like literally everybody wanted to do the ulta palu purple sari.
Or wo backless choli.
And the backless choli.
Yes, of course.
I mean...
But that's what I mean. I don't think there's any country in the world where it's that direct.
I mean, if they're hanging in Rampur, those saris, can you imagine? Rampur is like a town in UP where maybe a lot of people have not even heard or have been there, you know?
Which is why they say that like film artists are the biggest fashion influencers.
Ah, that is true. Yeah. That is so true. Anybody lately, whether it's a costume designer, an actor, director, anyone lately?
So Sheetal Sharma, who did the costumes for, just now he's done Chhaava, but he did, okay, wait, there's that lovely DQ film, Dulquer Salmaan and Mrunal Thakur.
I know.
Telugu. You know what I'm saying?
Sitaramam.
And if you just look at her saris in that.
Beautiful, no? Very aesthetic.
Just gorgeous. Not in your face, but really, just really pretty.
Yeah.
You know? So I think that he's done amazing work. In terms of artists, people like Sonam who are really fashion forward. What I love is that she would wear Namza at the Ambani Sangeet or the wedding, a Ladakh brand.
Yeah, and put them on the map.
When you have people like her showcasing, local designers, I think that's powerful.
I think somebody like her who has a very strong high fashion aesthetic in real life.
Yes.
That's just who she is.
Yeah.
Even if she's playing like somebody who's from a humble background.
Correct.
Somehow, whatever she chooses,
aesthetic.
it may be humble, but it's still very beautiful.
It is very
like Ranjana's coming to my mind.
Yes.
Even like Padman,
Yeah.
where she's not necessarily glamorous, like Aisha, where it was all designer, and that makes sense because that was the character. But even when it's not, that aesthetic is carrying on because it's just inherently maybe just who she is.
Yeah. When you're in a film, you're playing a character.
Right.
And you have to do whatever it takes to be that character.
Right.
I'm talking about what's off screen, which is also now such a massive influence because now the paparazzi culture is like deeply a part of our ecosystem,
Yes.
which is great. I
Yeah.
mean, why not? But I feel like there's too much pressure, and there's also a sort of sameness,
I was going to say, they all look cookie cutter.
which should not be because you want to cultivate an individual personality.
That's so true. Let's go over some icons.
Yeah.
Okay, Zeenat Aman. I saw her at the Shantanu and Nikhil fashion show in Delhi, and it was me, Suneet Verma, and then there was a seat was free next to Suneet Verma, and she came and sat next to him. He couldn't contain himself. He's interacted with lots of actors, I'm sure, but because she's such an icon to all of us who love fashion, you know, like he was so excited. He was like a child. I was like, Suneet, you're so embarrassing. That like power she has because of her persona. I mean, off and on screen, like till today, she has commands that like power, you know.
Yeah. Her and Parveen Babi were, of course, the OG westernized, quote unquote, girls. And they really kind of changed the narrative for what is acceptable for a Hindi film heroine. Though, truthfully, Sharmila ji also like did her own
bathing suit, Evening in Paris.
Evening in Paris. I mean, my God, think about it. In the 1960s, this woman was just unbelievable. Unbelievable. But these two really broke the mold in terms of a longer term impact because also the films were so successful.
That's true.
Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, and then a bunch of the films that Parveen Babi was in were just massive. The songs were so big. They were like the OG kind of disruptors, if you will.
They were.
Yeah.
I mean, there are looks that like stand out to me, like there's a polka dot outfit on the beach. I believe it's with Vinod Khanna of Zeenat Aman. Then her jumpsuit in Churaliya with the black choker. Like these looks like, I can imagine girls then like copying like exact. Okay, another icon, Rekha ji. Like
Umrao Jan.
Umrao Jan is, do you think where she really became the icon?
So of course, Khoon Bari Mang, who can forget?
Yes.
When she becomes the
Like the
supermodel.
makeover,
The makeover happens and how fabulous is she? Even in Madam X. You know.
You know, Madam X has become a really big film for like the gay community.
Really?
Yeah. She's an icon there also.
No, absolutely. But I think in terms of just performance and kind of the way she looked coming together just to perfection was Umrao Jan.
That refinement she adapted in Umrao Jan has never left her. It's like she's in that mold and she's just carrying forward in that mold.
She was lovely.
But obviously a lot of credit has to be given to Muzaffar Ali as well because his taste and his sense of aesthetic is very good. Her off-screen persona, I think, is as big as her on-screen persona. And I think it's as influential. Like Umrao Jan, she was playing a North Indian character, so it was a lot of these farshi ghararas and stunning outfits. But in her off-screen persona, it is very South Indian.
The Kanjivaram.
The saris and the temple jewelry. I just want to go to her closet and see this collection. I just need 3 hours there. Please, Rekha ji, just 3 hours. I just want to open all the saris and I want to look at all this temple jewelry like closely. And I can't, you know, once in a while I'll see her somewhere and I can't stare at her, although I want to, you know. But the off-screen persona is as strong. Do you think sometimes when your off-screen persona is very strong in terms of, say, in this case, like fashion, do you think that helps you, like, in terms of longevity as a star, in terms of your career?
I don't think so. I think ultimately it's going to be about the talent and the movies. Maybe you could stay in conversation. But I think in the long run, fundamentally what's going to fuel you is your art.
Is your film choices and the kind of work you do?
Yeah.
Do you think it makes a difference to when people are offering films?
Beauty is always been a sort of a desired quality, especially in Hindi cinema. And leading ladies, to matlab, at one point, it was a prerequisite. And at one point, it was also very limiting idea of what beauty is. It was always fair skin, long hair, big eyes. But thankfully, the definition of beauty has now enlarged. So though fair skin continues to be much coveted quality in heroes and heroines, but they're far more lax with men.
The few like dusky women have really had to fight to make it.
They really had to fight. People like Nandita Das and a couple of others have talked about how blatantly and openly they've been told, but you don't fit the bill
The bill of a leading lady.
of a leading lady. But like I said, like we're breaking away from those. We're seeing different kinds of women like really do well, which is always just so hard.
Do you think that's thanks to OTT?
I think it's thanks to many things. I mean, even somebody, let's say, like a Priyanka Chopra, who's really, really gorgeous, but is not necessarily that big eyes, wide, doe-eyed, sort of,
Fair girl, yeah.
Fair girl, yeah. But she, even in the beginning, was very much a woman in control.
That's true.
In her second or third film was Aitraz, in which she was the villain. So I think the women themselves have expanded the narrative. What OTT has done, I think, has allowed all of these women who are of a certain age to have a sort of great,
Second innings, yeah.
because cinema in theatres does not know what to do with Madhuri Dixit or Kajol or Raveena Tandon or Lara Datta, and they are all talented, very good looking.
Who look great, yeah.
Who look great. But like they're like, where to fit her in now, So I feel like what OTT has done is really allowed us to see that, look, these are amazing artists and they deserve their own shows and stories.
narratives,
Exactly. And that's empowering.
So do you think the fashion game or the aesthetic game has been diluted or gone down because of OTT?
Not at all. I just think that it's created a great new generation of fantastic actors.
Yeah.
And I think that cinema will always be hallowed ground. And I don't think OTT's taken away anything from that theatrical experience. I think, in fact, it's only fed, especially social media, especially Instagram, has only fueled the fire more, especially because, every time a heroine gets married or a hero gets married, we all go into a
The
dizzy.
biggest fashion spectacle because it's like, who are they wearing? What are they wearing?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I just did an interview with Aditi and Siddharth, and I was like, we were all part of your wedding. Thanks to Instagram.
Oh my God, thanks to Instagram, I feel like I know people. And then I meet them at places and sometimes I say hi and I'm like, wait, you don't know them. You just follow them on Instagram. It's so embarrassing.
What might have frayed is the idea of stardom. You can literally count on one hand who your massive A-listers are, but I feel the idea of stardom perhaps has
Diluted a bit.
a bit, not in the South, where they're still godlike
In Bombay,
figures.
maybe, yeah.
Maybe Hindi cinema also, because it's honestly, we've had a bad run. But the idea of glamour and actors being the kind of sort of high priests of glamour, it's very much there.
Let's talk about some men. Like, who are the men who you feel like their style has had some impact? Like, I know we discussed Feroz Khan. I think Rahul Khanna was telling me last season, where he has a childhood memory of traveling with Feroz Khan. And he remembers like his outfit, he remembers his like luggage, he had matching luggage. And that like flair and that stardom of like, which didn't exist.
The cowboys.
I mean, Rahul Khanna, I cannot forget it. And now I feel like Rahul Khanna himself is so stylish,
He is.
So, who are some of the other men? And even Feroz Khan, I'll give him a special mention. The women in his films were very aesthetic.
Dazzling. Absolutely.
Like, beautiful.
Yeah.
Even Sridevi had that cameo once in the chiffon sarees.
Yeah,
And Mumtaz in her hot shorts. And these are all Feroz Khan films where these women were like just glamazons.
Yeah.
So he's had a huge impact.
He's had a huge impact. Of course, Bhansali's had a huge impact.
Bhansali.
Massive impact.
Do you know what I love about Bhansali? Not that I know him, but from what I see on your show, because he does a lot of interviews with you. I've seen every time you've interviewed Bhansali, I've seen it. His films, the costumes are obviously usually period. So they're intricate, they're elaborate, they're glamorous, they're beautiful. And he's always in a kurta pajama.
Yes.
I feel like he's a clean slate.
Yeah.
So that then he can build from a clean place.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm just going too deep in it, but that's really what I feel.
Yeah.
Like he's so chic, simple kurta pajama.
Yeah.
If you meet him and you don't know he's Bhansali, you'll be like, okay, what a simple, chic, unassuming man.
Correct.
But this imagination of these crazy worlds and costumes and it's insane, right?
Absolutely. No, I think so too. I think he keeps himself very simple.
Yeah.
And he takes it all out in the frame.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Men, I would say Saif is very elegant.
Saif is, I think, one of my all-time best dressed men.
Casual elegance, which is so nice.
Yeah. And Saif in his movies also. Remember like Ole Ole, his jacket, his jeans with the belt.
Yeah.
Like he was always stylish.
Yeah. Always.
Maybe, I mean, his parents were super stylish as well. You do inherit some things,
You
you
do.
know? You
You
see
do.
something growing up and then you just kind of...
I mean,
Yeah.
so elegant.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
without feeling like you put in a lot of work.
When he puts on his sunglasses and pajamas also, he looks good. It's
This is
amazing.
true. And I would say Shah Rukh because the charm does half the work.
It doesn't matter what he's wearing.
It's like industrial strength charm.
Yeah.
It's okay then.
There's never been a more charming man after him.
No.
Who was before him?
Devanand, just dashing. My mother says the day he got married, we all wept.
Really?
Because somehow they thought they were in the running.
It's that feeling that just stay single for my dreams.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. And,
Yeah.
and Dilip Kumar was more serious, more of the tragic hero, but just beautiful to look at.
I do want to do some special mentions in
Yes,
this. Like
yes.
maybe they're not like, it's not like many films, but like artists with special mentions. For example, Meena Kumari.
Yes.
Sanjay Leela Bhansali has spoken many times about how he takes his influence from Pakiza.
Yeah.
And then who else? Mumtaz's orange sari moment, which was like
She's just gorgeous.
cute and
Very
like
cute,
unbelievable.
yeah,
And
yeah,
again,
yeah.
there's something effortlessly very cute about her.
I want to say who's sort of like a little bit of a wild, card
Yeah.
is Simi Garewal in Curse.
Yeah.
Of course, she was the cougar, but the fact that she could play that role, Kamini, her name was Kamini, and she pulled that off with such elegance. Till Bichari, her character goes mad and gets bumped off rather sadly. But till then,
Yeah.
Kamini was like
In
pretty
control
cool,
and cool and glamorous and
Exactly.
beautiful.
Exactly.
Since you've mentioned her, I do also want to mention that her show
Yes.
that she did,
Seminal. Absolutely.
even today when I watch episodes, it was so good. She
Yeah.
somehow got everyone to get really emotional.
Yes.
And then aesthetically, since we're talking about fashion, where did she find so many white outfits?
Amazing.
Like,
And the jewelry and the everything.
Yeah,
Just perfect.
When you were growing up, who were you like
Dazzled by.
dazzled by? Like, we all have that. For me, it was Sridevi and Madhuri, right? So who
Correct.
was it by for you?
Truthfully, we were like South Bombay snobs.
Still are. They're still the same. too good for cinema.
Yeah, but like I got seduced by Bollywood, so
Yeah.
I can't really claim to be a South Bombay snob anymore. But when
Yeah.
we were growing up, like we saw English films, so at Sterling and Eros and these like South Bombay theaters, we were dazzled by John Travolta and Saturday Night Fever.
Yeah.
That was like, oh my God.
Like cool.
And truthfully, Hindi films in the 80s were quite bad.
Huh.
So there was not a lot to aspire to.
Especially fashion-wise.
Especially fashion. That
Yeah.
started genuinely with Rangila.
But actually, you know what? Even now, 80s fashion is very celebrated.
Really?
Yeah, very much so. Like I said, Madam X is like a huge iconic film for a lot of people.
And Chandni, which was 89.
Yeah,
On
the cusp, yeah.
On the cusp, but she was stunning in that.
Stunning
She was
and
really
elegant.
stunning. Yeah.
Another special mention I want to give is for Mani Ratnam. Because it's not just the fact that he's like a brilliant filmmaker and his movies are amazing, but there is a fashion element.
And Manisa will never talk about this. Mani Ratnam's like very clipped in his answers. But if you look at the women, and the way he's framed them, and the way
shoots women
think of
beautifully.
Aishwarya in Guru.
Oof.
Just
Yeah.
stunning. Or think of Aishwarya in Ponniyin Selvan.
I was going to say PS1 and PS2, the costumes and the jewelry.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's Eka Lakhani.
Eka Lakhani, and I think I met her somewhere. I told her that it was brilliant.
It is.
Like, for example, inside whatever they were wearing, she corseted them. You couldn't see the corsets because
Yeah.
they were not a part of that time.
Right.
But she smartly constructed the garments where from the outside it looks like what it's supposed to look like in terms of the time period, but the inside they're kind of like sucked in perfectly well to give them the perfect shape.
Yeah.
It was brilliant.
And look at the way he shot, Aishwarya's introduction, or in PS2 when she and Vikram are finally together,
That
and scene is just, it gives me goosebumps.
Goosebumps. Yeah, you're so right.
Kareena Kapoor Khan has always been very sort of pivotal in the
Pop culture?
I mean, you remember Size Zero? My God, that discussion lasted longer than the film ran in theaters.
That's so true.
It's,
Yeah.
with Tashan. I said this to her a couple of years ago. She was just about to turn 40. And for me, it was fantastic that a woman, a mother of two, who's just going to be 40 years old, is also seen as desirable.
She changed that.
Like, she's never hidden her age. she's always talked about, yes, I'm 42 now, I'm 43 now, and it's all great. It's part of the allure.
Yeah.
And same with like a taboo.
Yeah, Tabu and the Suitable Boy.
Yes.
Suitable Boy. That
She's
I mean, it was
she's the
very
courtessan
aesthetic.
or whatever,
Yeah.
the ghazal singer.
Again, like
yeah.
playing out like a seductress in a way.
Yes, I remember
Yeah.
I texted Arjun Baseen. I'm like, where can I get this? And I'm always trying to convince them, start a line,
Yeah.
a suitable boy line. Like some of
That's-
us want these clothes.
That's true.
You know?
I know Anju Modi did.
Bajirao Mastani.
Bajirao Mastani.
Yes,
Anju
yes.
Modi had a line. I think after Hira Mandi also, Rimple in Harpreet had a line.
Really?
Yeah, because I mean, everybody asks.
Yeah.
I mean, when I did the costumes for Aisha, everyone was like, where can I get it? I was like, I really don't know because something is from Janpa, something I borrowed from Dior,
Correct.
something is from some thrift shop in New York.
Yeah.
That movie was really a mishmash of
Right.
pata nahi kya kya, you know?
Yeah, but what fun.
So fun, so
Yeah,
fun because we were so
yeah.
young and we got to just shop around the whole world, just for
Perfect.
things, you know, it was so much fun. But do you think like the aesthetics and fashion is one of the best parts about cinema? Like I think so, but you're a film critic, so you see everything.
Truthfully, for me, it's always going to be story and character. That will always be sort of what I respond to the most. But I think it's a fallacy to think that, oh, but cinema must always be uplifting. Our first reason to go into the movies was pleasure. I
Yeah.
don't think there's a sort of caste system where films that teach us things are necessarily better than things which are just beautiful to look at. I think beauty in and of itself is worthy.
100%.
It's like people always sort of look down a little bit on comedy, because somehow it's understood that, oh, but drama is heavier, drama is harder. But to make people laugh,
Is the hardest thing.
it's
right?
the hardest
All actors say that.
and it's such a joy. Like to spread joy, to spread pleasure.
Speaking of fashion icons and spreading joy, I cannot forget Govinda. Okay, like I like growing up in all the #1 films, those tight outfits and just going for it.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
he was an aesthetic in himself. Like
Absolutely.
he was joyous. His fashion was also joyful.
Yeah.
And even Salman went through that phase at that time with the pink pants and the orange shirt. Like, you know, like the really colorful clothes.
Yes.
Like it was very joyful.
It was,
And then
yeah.
cinema was also like that. You know, it
Yes.
was fun and songs and, you know.
Yeah. When Karan had said to me once that I'm Karan Johar, this is that you know, I don't know, I can't remember that, like I'm getting I'm doing something very serious. I'm like, don't.
We watch your movies for the beauty and the glamour.
Rocky or Rani, right? No journalist is going to dress in those saris, but what a joy it was to look at those saris.
I'm so glad she didn't dress like a real journalist on the
Exactly.
job. I don't want to watch a Karan Johar movie with real clothes. Like, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like who needs reality in that frame?
Universe.
In that universe.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, it was so lovely. It was just
I
such
have to
fun.
give a shout out to Manish's those ombre saris. Because after a very long time, I saw every college kid at their graduation, every influencer on Instagram has made an ombre sari or looking for an ombre sari and doing the little dance in it. Like that ombre sari infiltrated and how into society.
But that's the power.
That's the power.
Yeah,
Karan
yeah.
Johar and Manish, like shout out to them.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
remember when the trailer of Rocky and Rani came out, I sent Manish a message being like, to me, your work stands out the most.
Yeah.
Do you think, speaking of Karan Johar, that kind of aesthetic that Yash Chopra set, do you think Karan has taken that legacy forward in his work?
He absolutely has. And in fact, he said that Tum Kya Mile, in the song in Rocky Aur Rani,
Yeah.
was a direct sort of homage to Yashji. You know, chiffon saris in the snow,
Yeah.
obviously never going to happen.
Yeah, but I love watching it.
But I
Yeah.
love watching it,
Yeah.
exactly. So yeah, absolutely. That's where he grew up. The great thing is that we no longer have one type of cinema. So, you know, at the same time as you had Pushpa 2 playing in theaters, you had All We Imagine Is Light playing in theaters. And I feel that's the excitement of being a film commentator today, that there's no one type. I don't know what I'm going to get in a theater next week. You know,
It's kind of exciting.
it's very exciting. I feel like we don't need to be politically correct and say, you can only like this.
Yeah. Why not?
Like
Because-
anything.
yeah.
Just enjoy it.
Sometimes you're in the mood for like a beautiful light film.
Yes.
Sometimes you want to be moved.
Why does K3G have
repeat value. It's just good for all your senses. It's good for your eyes, those beautiful costumes, beautiful people, nice songs. All my senses are pleasured, you know. K3G, you know, is on the TV and I'm like, chalo.
And what is the downside of that?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Before we leave, I do want to give one more special mention because I'm a classical dancer. I do Kuchipudi. Another icon for me over the years has been Vajayanti Mala.
Of course.
I really think the classic dancer aesthetic of being extremely sexy but extremely graceful,
Yeah.
she has set that aesthetic so well.
Yes.
So much so that even like years later, like Farah Khan paid an homage to it in Om Shanti Om. The look she set for classical dancers is not traditionally like what we wear when we perform, but she made like a film version of it.
She evolved it.
She-
Absolutely.
And then obviously, I think she was a dream to watch as like in terms of a dancer.
Yes,
Precise-
absolutely.
precise
Even in that
movements.
hoto,
Hoto pe aisi baat.
jewel thief.
Jewel thief.
You know, I
Yeah,
mean,
even the
she's
black,
just, yes,
almost
yes.
like a leotard and then a skirt.
Yeah, and then that's all those things, the
Yeah.
hair, you know, all of it. It's just, again, is it real? No. But is it joyous? Yes.
Yeah. I think that's what's been so wonderful about
Yeah.
the impact of film on fashion.
Yeah. The downside, Banya, is that can we be truly experimental with fashion? Because Indian cinema is so heavily shadowing here, you know, those kind of questions, which is what I think Pratap meant when
Yeah.
he said that it stunted us, because maybe you can't go really supremely experimental. I don't know. I don't know anything about fashion.
Yeah, because
You
people
know?
may not accept it. Our fashion industry is not that old.
It's not.
That's the problem.
Exactly.
So, you know, when industries which are very old and well established, then the influence of other things is not as much.
Correct. You absorb it and you
Yeah,
use it.
yeah.
But here it might be just overshadowing.
Yeah.
Also because that whole idea of showstoppers, you must have
We need to talk about that.
a
Yeah.
Bollywood person on your ramp. You know, I'm sure that's difficult. Yeah.
Like if fashion wants to be its own entity
Correct.
and wants to kind of evolve by itself, the fashion industry, they can't be this reliant on film stars
Yeah.
or the movie industry, but
Yeah.
they are.
They are.
And I know why they're doing it,
Yeah.
but like that's not going to help them be independent
Yes.
of the film industry, right?
Yeah.
I think everyone's like, listen, as long as we get the eyeballs, it's like a
all
win-win
good.
situation. Yeah. Kapde bikre, please don't talk to me. As long as my clothes are selling, I'm good. It's very hard to do business these days. So it's like, come on. As long as everyone's like, you know, making money, doing
Yeah.
well, it's okay. Don't ask questions. Thank you so much. It's such an
you.
honor to like be
Thank
chatting
you.
with you in the same frame.
you.
In my effort to promote homegrown brands, I'm wearing this stunning ombre dress by Kasha. And speaking of ombre, it was a huge moment in Manish's movie with Karan Johar. So ombre is a whole vibe. And I was telling Anupama, I love her dress. It's a brand called
Salt.
Salt
From Kerala.
From Kerala,
There's
love.
a designer named Dia John.
So we have to give a shout out because this dress is stunning.
Thank you.
Yeah.